the destruction of national sovereignty. All factors of the disintegration of sovereignty have been deployed on the ground of a war being waged simultaneously on all fronts as if the destruction was our destination. The first factor is the impersonation of the Dominican population. The dissolution of the unity of the Dominican people as a result of massive displacement of the Haitian population in our territory. Circumstance which, in turn, is the denationalization of employment. The destruction of all our social gains. Demographic changes are the biggest threat to the integrity and identity of a nation and the survival of their culture. The government has contributed to the implementation, banned for 2 full years deportations, Decree 250-14 and Decree 327-13. By law has granted nationality for the descendants of non-resident immigrants. Law 169-14. The second factor is the disappearance of the border that has made national parks. Dominican's forests are occupied by Haitian people who have decided to meet their extraordinary demands of forest resources, over 6 million cubic meters of wood per year in the territory Dominican. We are therefore faced with the development of 2 projects of society. 1, which establishes the survival of Haiti and the ruthless exploitation of the Dominican Republic. And 2, that it represents the path of independence of these adverse factors that we started from February 27, 1844. Between the 2 projects there are no reconciliation. Either we are sovereign and independent, and save the country from predation, illegal occupation and denationalization, or we allow all the forces conspiring against the sovereignty definitely end up ruining the historical legacy from the proclamation of the Dominican state. The third factor is the destruction of our self-determination. It is the inability to exercise a self-government operating in the interests of the Dominican people. When the Dominican state, represented by its legitimate government, denied to the nation the exercise of its sovereignty, embodied in the referendum, when improperly suspended the application of its migration laws, when it imposes a law changing the rules on citizenship, without consulting the people as stated in the Constitution, when he transferred the sovereign rights to foreign populations, and builds the basis for the destruction of national unity, the exercise of sovereignty destroys itself. The fourth is the weakness in the status of international recognition of the Dominican state. Today we face a policy of demolition and international harassment, which aim to depend on the implementation of our Constitution of foreign courts. Interfere in what is the reserved domain of the state, with pressures coming from the bureaucrats of the European Union, the UN Secretary-General, Ban Ki-moon, and all NGOs trying to resolve the tragedy of the infeasibility of Haiti at the expense of the Dominican Republic. The aim of all these pressures is to deprive us of the ability to decide, in accordance with the Constitution and laws. In short, all those tricks want to empty the national sovereignty of its contents. We have left one by one the factors of sovereignty, population, territory, government and international representation of the state. Sovereignty is inseparable from freedom, excludes subordination and submission to foreign obligations to its history and existence. Sovereignty is not divided, not shared or limited. When the state is unable to enforce its laws and conversely, declares war open to the Constitution. When its own initiative, it is proposed to dissolve the authority and self-determination in negotiating the mechanism, denying that exercise by which many Dominicans men and women fought, when allowing the sacred space of its territory is violated that impersonates its people in the registry, that their rights are trampled in the concert of nations of the world, we are faced with the annihilation of sovereignty. Imagine that we face the Supreme Court of history. The country has no employment policy, because it has allowed jobs to be devoured by illegal immigration in all areas. No immigration policy, because it has allowed a territory of which fully addressed illegal, as if they were non-existent borders. No health or education or transport policy, because all these achievements have been eaten, burned and dismantled by circumstances. They have been imposed against the common destiny which constitute the Dominicans. All this has been done without the people, and, particularly, operating against its own existence. National sovereignty belongs to the Dominican people, who exercise it by means of elected representatives in the suffrage and through the mechanisms of direct democracy are the referendum and popular initiatives. Sovereignty leads us to break with fatalism, with impotence, with conformity. It is the exercise of self-termination of the nation. History repeats itself as tragedy. The lack of commitment to the nation, the sovereignty of the people and the men who ruled us in the 19th century led first to an unproductive debt and ultimately to the loss of sovereignty. The past comes to picking on us. On behalf of an alleged defense of human rights of Haitians cannot shatter the Dominican Republic. On behalf of foreigners cannot bury the rights of nationals. Restore dignity to a people. It should not lead to wipe out other people. We have a right to be free and independent of the tragic circumstances of our neighbors.